Besides, he's also a gambling addict with huge amounts of debt. He is notorious for that from where he came from. I have full reason to suspect that he murdered his father for the sake of money. Once Alara said that, the man's expression changed immediately. He roared, "Nonsense! You're spouting utter nonsense! Nonsense!" Alara scoffed and pulled out a pack of drugs. "These are remnants of arsenic found in your house. Your fingerprints have been found on them. After a thorough investigation, we're sure there is no mistake. We have solid evidence here, so there's no use denying it anymore." When he saw that, the middle-aged man's knees gave way. He slumped to the ground, his expression ashened. He was done for. He was completely done for now. When Alara took out the final evidence, the middle-aged man fell on his knees in despair. Had it just been the insurance records, he could have wormed his way out. But now that they found the poison, and it even had his fingerprints on it, there was nothing else he could say to save himself. So it turns out that this bastard had lied. How despicable! He even murdered his own father. Does he have no conscience? A beast. He's a beast through and through. The onlookers who had gathered around began berating and condemning him. They had thought that the victim had died due to the products of the vile sellers, but the man had intentionally framed them. And the worst part was that he was evil enough to harm his own father. Not even an animal would do something like that. It was downright inhumane. What a good for nothing! Eleanor muttered under her breath with her brows furrowed. Not only had he failed to accomplish his purpose, he even left behind such important evidence. It seemed like he was out to ruin himself. It seems like they came prepared. Ezra's eyes narrowed, his gaze dark. He had to admit that Bo knew what he was doing. They gathered so much evidence and easily put the pieces together in such a short time. Humph, I could tell at a glance that you were up to no good. Seeing how the tides have changed, Mr. Zagati quickly ordered, "Men, capture this beast who murdered his father immediately. Send him to prison for further questioning." At his orders, several men in uniform approached the middle-aged man and cuffed his hands behind his back. "Mr. Swanson, save me! Please save me!" Flustered, the man shouted at Ezra hysterically. Once he was judged guilty, he might never be able to get out of prison anymore. HMPH, what's anything got to do with me? Ezra countered impassively, not wanting to get involved. "Mr. Swanson, you cannot desert me now. You were the one who—" "Shut up!" Before the man could continue, Ezra rushed up to the man and punched him, glaring menacingly at the man. "You rotten bastard! If you continue spouting nonsense, I'll make your life a living hell." The middle-aged man was bleeding from his nose and lost 2 of his teeth, but he dared not utter another word. He knew that if he let slip that Ezra was involved, he might not live to see the next sunrise. Bring them away. With a wave, Mr. Zagati ordered his men to haul the man and those with him into their vehicles. The crowd commented and discussed what had happened among themselves. It was shocking how the tables had turned within mere minutes. The victims had turned into the perpetrators, and vice versa. "Ezra, why are you so worked up? Could this possibly have anything to do with you?" Bo asked thoughtfully. "You must be joking. Mr. Dawson, the Swanson family has always been sincere and upright. How could I ever be involved in something like this?" Ezra forced a smile. "That's true." Bo smiled. Only scums of the earth would stoop so low as to frame another person for something they didn't do. The Swanson family wouldn't be so heinous to do something like that. The corners of Ezra's lips twitched involuntarily. He was enraged, but there was nothing he could do about it. Bo was obviously implying that they were scums, but Ezra had no way of retaliating. He could only hold his tongue and bear with it. "Bo, what exactly have the Camerons offered you? Why are you helping them?" Eleanor asked with her brows furrowed. "I have always stood up for people in unjust situations. Do you have a problem with that?" Bo lifted his chin and looked down his nose at them. "There are never lasting enemies, Bo. Only lasting interests. No matter what benefits the Camerons have offered you, The Welch family will offer you double. Eleanor tried to strike a deal with Beau. Double. Beau chuckled at that, and a hint of contempt crept into his smile. Truth be told, I'm the biggest shareholder of DuBois. I hold 40% of the shares. So if you were to double that, that'd be 80%. Are you able to afford that? What? When she heard that, Eleanor's expression soured. She had assumed that Beau had been offered some form of benefit to assist the Camerons. It hadn't occurred to her that they had formed such an alliance. It was impossible to get Beau to side with them now. So this is how it is, Ezra frowned, his expression dark. He had thought that something was off from the moment Beau appeared. Why are you silent now? Didn't you offer to give me double? Beau taunted. Humph, you better not be happy too soon. You may have DuBois, but we've got Rejuvenate. Who's to say your product is better? Eleanor huffed. The Dawson family might be powerful, but the Welch family and the Swanson family weren't to be trifled with either. Haha, Rejuvenate? That's just a subpar product that isn't even worth mentioning. How can it be compared to DuBois? Beau asked in disdain. You claim that Rejuvenate is a subpar product. Fine, are you down for a bet? Eleanor challenged. Oh, what kind of a bet are you proposing? Beau seemed interested in what Eleanor was suggesting. Simple, we'll just bet on our sales. Let's see who makes the highest sales. Eleanor lifted her chin proudly. And what happens when we win? Or what happens if we lose? Beau asked. Winning will prove which product is the genuine one. Hence, the winner shall now be in control of the market. As for the loser, not only will they need to surrender their formula, but they will also have to sign an agreement never to sell any similar ointments again. Eleanor declared. Beau raised his brows at that. The Welch family was clearly challenging them now. Not only would they be mocked and defamed if they did not agree to it, but it would also affect their reputation. But if they were to agree, they would be subjected to the Welch families and the Swanson families' underhanded tactics. If they lost, not only would it be embarrassing, but they would also suffer a huge financial loss. That would only result in Dawson Medical Group falling into a crisis again. The consequences would be drastic. What, do you not dare to take up the bet? Eleanor pursed her lips contemptuously. You claim that yours is the genuine product, but you don't even dare to compete with us. Are you not confident in your product, or are you just cowards? Beau frowned without giving her an answer. Instead, he turned around to look at Dustin and Lana. DuBois did not belong to him. He could not make the decision himself. You want a bet? Sure, we're down for it. Dustin spoke up. Lana's expression changed, and she quickly advised Dustin against it. Dustin, this might be a ploy. Don't fall into their trap. Don't worry. They're bound to lose today. No matter what they try, they won't be able to win. Dustin smiled like he didn't have a care in the world. Eleanor was no doubt playing with fire when she suggested the bet. She was bringing the Welch and Swanson families closer to bankruptcy, and that sat fine with Dustin. What do you say, Mr. Dawson? Lana turned to look at him. Since Reese has decided to take her up on the bet, I fully support his decision. Our product is of good quality, and we sell it at an affordable price. If we do not win this bet, we might as well not sell the product anymore. Beau shrugged. When Lana heard what Beau said, she nodded. Fine, we'll play their little game then. We accept the bet. Eleanor was secretly pleased to see that all three of them had agreed to it. A sly smirk graced her features. What a bunch of idiots. All it took were a few words to agitate them, and now they fell into her trap. She would never have suggested such a bet if she was not fully confident that she would win. Framing them with the dead body had just been plan A, but now they would go all out and deploy plan B. As long as Dustin agreed to take her up on the bet, he'd be jumping headfirst into the trap Eleanor had laid out for him. Draft us an agreement to sign now, Eleanor ordered. The people who were with Eleanor immediately began busying themselves. A while later, 2 copies of an agreement were brought to her. Relevant clauses of the agreement were clearly stated. Not only would the losers need to surrender their formula, but they would also have to make a public apology and promise never to sell similar products again. Have you had a good look at it yet? If you have, then go ahead and sign it, Eleanor urged. Dustin, Lana, and Bo said nothing. After checking that everything was correct with the agreement, they all proceeded to sign it. Eleanor and Ezra exchanged a glance before signing on it, too. The agreement had officially come into effect. Ha ha ha, you three are such idiots. You actually agreed to the bet. I can't believe it. Seeing that her ploy was working, Eleanor no longer felt the need to cover things up. She taunted mercilessly, Rejuvenate already has its own market, and we've also received a large number of orders. You, however, have only just launched. How can you compete against us? It was true that DuBomb was sold at a cheaper price than Rejuvenate, and it was also much more effective, given enough time and publicity. It would surely be a hit product with demand surpassing even that of Rejuvenate's. But unfortunately, they no longer had such a chance. They were digging their own grave to compete against Rejuvenate before they had a stable market. Dustin, everyone saw you sign the agreement. It's too late for you to regret your decision now. It'd be best for you to give up now. Ezra sneered. With so many reporters and onlookers, they were not afraid that Dustin would deny accepting the bet. Besides, they had the signed agreement too. Don't get ahead of yourself. We don't know who will end up losing yet, Dustin said casually. Is that so? Ezra scoffed. I see that you're not one to regret until death stares you in the face. I'll make sure that you're totally defeated. With that said, Ezra raised his hands and clapped twice. A long, red banner was unrolled on the building opposite the road. A congratulatory message was printed on it in bold. Congratulations on the official launch of Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals. Once the banner was unrolled, things immediately became lively on both sides of the road. Two musical bands made their way toward Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals from both sides of the building. Their music attracted a huge crowd. Gather round and have a look. Everyone, we're having a company launching event today, so whoever buys Rejuvenate will get a discount and a nice gift from Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals. The gifts are limited, so we're giving them out on a first-come, first-served basis. An MC with a microphone in hand hollered at the crowd opposite the road. People from several streets down could hear him clearly. They're giving out gifts with every purchase. Let's go and have a look. Hurry, we should go check it out too. We have to get it before they're out of gifts. The MC's announcement managed to attract a lot of attention. Several people in the crowd were brought by the Welch and Swanson families beforehand. They quickly urged the rest of the crowd to flock over to Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals. After receiving a subtle nod from Ezra, the reporters, too, crossed the road and began to publicize the event and report it on their media. Within mere minutes, it was deserted over at the Camerons. There were only a few staff left. All the crowd and excitement had gone over to Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals. At the sight of that, Ezra beamed even brighter. See that, Dustin? This is the surprise we prepared for you. So you guys came prepared. Isn't this just cheating? Lana criticized them. Haha, all is fair in war. You can't blame me for your own stupidity. I can't believe you actually took us up on the bet. Ezra gloated. It's jam-packed over on our side, but I can't say the same for you. It's pretty clear who's going to be the winner now. You might as well just admit defeat, Eleanor smirked. Though their plan to frame Dustin and Lana with the dead body hadn't worked, their strategy to provoke them had. Eleanor and Ezra's plan had not gone to waste. What's the rush? We've still got time before the day ends. Dustin remained calm and composed. What? Are you still unwilling to admit that you've lost? Ezra mocked with a taunting smile. Fine. We'll just take things up a notch and make sure that you acknowledge your defeat. Then he pulled out his cell phone and made a call. 3 minutes later, a black Mercedes-Benz drove up to them from the corner of the street and pulled up on the opposite side of the road. The doors opened and a plump, well-dressed man and his secretary came out. Then he shouted, An order of Rejuvenate worth $5 million for the owner of Conray Medicals. Right away, the crowd at Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals was in a frenzy. Conray Medicals was a well-known pharmaceutical company with a booming business in Oakville. They had over 100 stores and maintained an excellent reputation all along. The owner of Conray Medicals was also known to be a billionaire. It was truly shocking for him to make a public appearance too. Place an order of $5 million worth of Rejuvenate. Not long after the Mercedes-Benz pulled up, a Maybach followed suit. When the doors opened, an old man with white hair and his walking stick in hand came out. An order of $10 million worth of Rejuvenate for the director of Gonfrey Group. The MC shouted into the microphone. Another commotion broke out among the crowd once again. But before the commotion died down, another astonishing thing happened. One by one, a whole lineup of luxury cars began appearing. There were Bentleys, Porsches, Rolls-Royces, and every other imaginable luxury car. As each car pulled up, a powerful and influential person would emerge. The MC's voice rang out loud and clear, announcing their arrival and orders. Mr. Fronder of Faprod Medicals placed an order for Rejuvenate worth $20 million to congratulate the launch of Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals. An order of $50 million worth of Rejuvenate from Mr. Woolsey of Safe Trust Securities. Mr. Lende of Lunpro Group has just placed an order for $100 million worth of Rejuvenate. Seeing the amount of the rich and powerful of the elite class were present, the crowd buzzed with excitement. Damn, they are placing orders by the millions. Isn't that too much? Is Rejuvenate really so miraculous that all these rich men seem to rush to purchase it? The elites have foresight in the market. Surely, they see the potential in Rejuvenate. We better follow in their footsteps and buy the product. The crowd engaged in heated discussions. They had initially gathered around to join in on the excitement. None of them had expected things to get so exciting. In the end, many of the onlookers were tempted, and they, too, placed their orders. For a moment, the sales for Rejuvenate hiked steeply. Things did not look good for DuBomb. Do you know the difference between us now, Dustin? Do you admit defeat now? Ezra's lip lifted into a confident smirk. Defeat. Dustin gave a faint smile. Why don't you turn around and have a good look to see who's the loser? Turn around? What? Are you able to change things up? Ezra sniggered condescendingly. He turned around to have a look. All he saw was how great business was for them at Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals. Customers were swarming in, and almost everyone in the elite circle of South City had come to show their support. Besides that, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Dustin, I think you're too old for such childish gimmicks. Does such jokes humor you? Ezra mocked. Hey, are you just too much of a coward to admit defeat? Eleanor asked sarcastically. We have witnesses, evidence, and the signed agreement. There's no point saying more. Just surrender the formula already. It'd be less embarrassing for you that way. Who said that we've lost? See for yourself. What's that over there? Dustin gestured in a direction down the road. Huh, do you think I'd fall for the same trick again? Ezra huffed without looking back. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Ezra wasn't stupid enough to be tricked twice. As they conversed, a black Land Rover sped up to them and stopped right in front of Cameron Group's subsidiary. A buff man in a black suit came out as the door opened. Raymond Yoldi of Ormdale Corporation would like to congratulate Cameron Medicals on your launching. As a show of support, I would like to order $10 million worth of DuBomb. The man announced loudly. Ezra and Eleanor's smile immediately froze when they heard that. They had thought that Dustin was just bluffing. It turned out that he really had people coming over to support them. Thank you for your support, Mr. Yoldi. Please, come on in. Lana was overjoyed and quickly ushered the man in. A $10 million order might be nothing compared to the orders that Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals was getting, but it was a good sign for them nonetheless. Ezra, is there an Ormdale Corporation in South City? I don't recall there ever being such a company. Eleanor wondered aloud curiously. The Welch and Swanson families controlled the South City, so they knew almost all the rich and powerful elites in the area. Ormdale Corporation is from the East City. If I'm guessing it right, Bo must have invited this person, Ezra explained. I see, Eleanor nodded, unbothered. It was just a $10 million order. It was nothing. She would not let something so trivial get to her. Dustin, you can't be thinking that you can compete against U.S. with just the support of Ormdale Corporation, can you? You'd be too naive to think so? Ezra smirked. That was just a second-tier company. How could it ever be compared to the elites they have connections with? What's the rush? The show is just beginning. Dustin remained unfazed. Just starting. Ha ha. I'd like to see what you're capable of. Ezra looked at Dustin in disdain. He had barely finished speaking when a long convoy of cars showed. Up around the corner, the convoy comprised of luxury cars, each worth at least millions. There were sports cars, sedans, SUVs, and many others. The convoy showed up in an orderly manner, captivating the crowd's attention. Finally, the cars all stopped at Cameron Medicals as everyone watched on. As the doors of the cars opened one by one, well-dressed elites and influential figures came out from the cars to congratulate them on the launch. Larry Yards of Scheinford Corporation congratulates Cameron Medicals on the official launch of your company. I'd like to place a $20 million order for Do Bomb. Harris Mordson of Dinsby Medicals here to congratulate Cameron Medicals on your launching. I'd like to place a $30 million order for Do Bomb. Gatson Orms of Rauros Group would like to order $80 million of Do Bomb. Congratulations on the launch of Cameron Medicals. All the best. More and more rich and influential figures came to congratulate the Camerons and placed huge orders for Do Bomb. Their popularity and orders began to match that of Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals. Ezra and Eleanor could no longer keep the smiles on their faces. Ezra and Eleanor didn't expect so many wealthy people to support Cameron Medical's launch. They began to grow anxious. If this were to carry on, they were beginning to doubt whether they would win. Gentlemen, thank you for showing up and giving us your support. Please, head on in. Lana and Mateo beamed from ear to ear as they welcomed the guests and invited them in for a seat. The Welch and Swanson families dominated the market in South City. With just the Camerons' abilities alone, they would not have been able to get much support. But now that they had help from the Dawson family, many of the wealthy merchants from Easy City turned up to support them. Had it not been for the Dawsons, Cameron Medicals would have lost terribly. I never expected you to be prepared for this. Mr. Dawson, I guess now we can have a proper fight against the Welch and Swanson families. Lana smiled brightly. These are all Dustin's arrangements. I'm only doing things according to his plan. Bo twirled a lighter around in his hand. Oh, Lana raised a brow and looked at Dustin in astonishment. How do you know that the Welch and Swanson families were going to do something like this? Dustin, 1. Those ploys they're trying aren't exactly brilliant to begin with. Dustin smiled. Besides, even if they weren't going to do that, we'd be making good publicity for Do Bomb to invite these people to the launch. There was nothing wrong to invite them. That makes sense. Lana nodded before glancing over at Eleanor and Ezra. She smiled and asked meaningfully, Ms. Welch, Mr. Swanson, not too sure who will win the bet anymore, don't you think? Though the Welch and Swanson families came prepared, it seemed that Dustin had been one step ahead of them. Humph, don't be too happy just yet. We're still in the lead now. Eleanor huffed. That's right. We've got a lot of connections. Victory will surely be ours at the end of the day. Ezra puffed his chest out confidently. The Dawson family might have gotten the support of many wealthy figures, but ultimately, there was a limit on how many connections a single family had. Since the Welch and Swanson families had joined hands, their connections and influence were much more than the Dawson families, even if they had to compete financially. They had a high chance of winning, too. They're just a bunch of insignificant people who aren't worth mentioning. The real show's just about to begin. Dustin flashed a slight smile. Stop acting all mysterious. No matter what powers you think you have, you're still bound to lose today, Eleanor shouted. He had just finished speaking when a Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up by the roadside. Soon after, a middle-aged man with a stubble came down from the car. He had a squarish face and bold features. Even without showing any emotions, he gave off a commanding presence. His every move seemed to show what a formidable person he was. Alistair's brows furrowed when he saw the man. His expression fell instantly. Matteo, on the other hand, was elated. He looked like a kid on Christmas morning. Ethan Langford from the Langford family here to congratulate you on your launch and wish you a booming business, the middle-aged man said. A commotion broke out among onlookers. What, Ethan Langford? Isn't that the leader of the Langford family? The Langford family is the head of Oakvale's 8 great families, and Ethan is a first-ranking minister. It speaks volumes about Cameron Medicals for someone of his position to turn up and show their support. My goodness, what exactly is going on? It seems like all the rich and powerful of the elite circle are here. Chaos descended over the crowd when they learned about Ethan's arrival. The Langfords were acknowledged to be the strongest family out of the 8 great families in Oakvale. Not only were they filthy rich, but they also had powers beyond any of the other families. Even among the 8 great families, they were undoubtedly the most prestigious. No one had expected Ethan Langford, who rarely showed up in public, to make an appearance in support of Cameron Medicals. It was truly shocking. Those from the Welch and Swanson families could no longer stay calm. They had planned and schemed for so long but never expected that the Langford family, the head of the 8 great families, would support the Camerons. There was a stark difference between the Langford family and the Welch and Swanson family's statuses. They were not even on the same level. Was it possible that the Cameron family actually had the Langfords backing them? How is this possible? Why would the leader of the Langford family show up here? Eleanor's eyes widened in disbelief. That was Ethan, the leader of the Langford family. He was a powerful and formidable minister of the imperial court. Known to be haughty, he never formed alliances with others. Even if Eleanor's parents invited Ethan, he wouldn't even show up. He wouldn't even care for people like Beau and Dustin. So, who exactly managed to get Ethan to turn up in person? Things just turned bad for us. Ezra broke out in a cold sweat, flustered. It was bad enough they had to go against the Dawson family, but now that the leader of the Langford family was here, things had just gone from bad to worse. The Langfords ranked first among Oakvale's 8 great families, and the Dawsons came second. They were considered the supreme for families. On the other hand, the Welch and the Swansons could only be considered the remarkable for families. They ranked in the lower half among the 8 great families. If they were to compare their combined forces, the Langford and Dawson families definitely preceded that of the Welch and Swanson families. As such, they no longer had an advantage in the bet today. In fact, they were in a bad spot. How could this be? Did the Cameron family actually join hands with the Langfords? Alistair's expression darkened, his brows furrowed. Ethan's appearance had completely turned the tables. Alistair was no longer sure if their ploy would work out anymore. Welcome, Mr. Langford. Please come inside. Matteo personally came out to welcome Ethan and let him in. They did not even need the Langfords to purchase their product. Just his presence alone was already a tremendous help to them. In no time at all the Langford family's connections would swarm up to them in a show of support. What do you think, Miss Welch? Do you like the surprise? Lana was energized now. Honestly speaking, even Lana herself had not thought that Beau could get Ethan to show up for the company launch. But now that they had the support of the Langford family, their chances of winning the bet increased by leaps. Why would Mr. Langford support you? What schemes have you deployed? Eleanor frowned. Her expression turned sour like she'd eaten a lemon. That's not something you need to worry about. Miss Welch, you're better off thinking about what you're going to do after you lose the bet. A wide smile spread out on Lana's face. Ha! Even if you have the help of the Langford family, we won't necessarily lose, Eleanor retorted. The Langford and Dawson families were undoubtedly more powerful than the Welch and Swanson families, but Ezra and Eleanor were prepared to give their all to win the bet. No matter what it took to win, they would do it. Clearly, the Langford and the Dawson families would not be as relentless as them, and that was the key to their victory. Look, there's another convoy approaching, someone from the crowd exclaimed. Everyone turned to see another convoy of luxury cars driving around the corner. This time, the convoy seemed even more grand than the one before. These were clearly no ordinary people. From the looks of it, they're probably people of importance too. Let's take a guess. Who do you think invited them? I can't say for sure. Both sides have equally as many people in support of them right now. It could be either of them. Oh, you're no fun. With everyone's gaze fixed on them, the convoy of luxury cars slowly made their way to the opposite side of the road. Finally, they stopped right at the front of Rejuvenate Pharmaceuticals. Eleanor was elated at the sight of that. Ha ha! They're here for us. Our backup is finally here. Yes, it's time we show them what we're capable of. Ezra was also overjoyed. Though Ethan's presence had changed things for them, they were fully prepared to reverse the tides. Who could it be? Alistair mumbled as he rubbed his chin. Anticipation was evident in his eyes. Most of the Welch and Swanson family's allies were already there. Could there be a surprise in store for them? Dustin, Lana, Beau? Eleanor called them out one by one haughtily. I told you, don't be happy too soon. What do you think now? Not so happy anymore, are we? I admit that you're quite a worthy opponent. Unfortunately, we're just much better than you, Ezra said proudly. As Ezra and Eleanor taunted their opponents, something out of the blue happened. The convoy that had just pulled up seemed to have sensed something amiss, and they drove off. Not a while later, they made a U-turn and came to the entrance of Cameron Medicals. After the cars stopped, several prominent figures who were elegantly dressed stepped out of the cars. They slowly made their way to Lana and Dustin to congratulate them.